Good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have opening words for us this morning. These are words entitled Struggle and Joy. They're words by Vance Bass. Every day brings struggle. Every day brings joy. Every day brings us the opportunity to ease the struggle of another, to be the joy in another's life. May we be mindful to carry with us our light to each other and to the world.
This seems to have gotten taller since last time I was here. I might need a step stool. So good morning. This is the time for us to light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. Would a volunteer be willing to come forward and help light our chalice? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Please rise as you're able for our chalice lighting words, which are on your screen. And let's say them together as our chalice is lit. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Please remain standing for our opening song, which is number 108 in your gray hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
That hails a new creation.
So good morning and welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Marjorie Wormser, today's Sunday Worship Associate. Whoever you are, whatever spiritual journey has led you here today, you are welcome in this room and online. I especially want to welcome any newcomers who are with us this morning. If you have not already done so, I invite you to please fill out a visitor card after the service at the welcome table, which you passed on your way in here. It will help you get connected with us. You can also talk with today's welcome ambassador, Donna Becker. Donna, you're here. Please raise your hand. Thank you. Donna would love to speak with you and answer any questions you might have. We are a community of ages, of many ages and many needs, but we all worship together. There are many different ways that you can join us on Sunday mornings, including here in our sanctuary, in our library, out the doors and immediately to the left, or online. Our library is an especially good place if you or a loved one need a little break from the service to talk or get out the wiggles. It has a screen so that you will not miss any of the service, and as I mentioned, it's straight out and to the left as you enter the Great Hall. Excuse me. There are always activities going on here at Morristown UU, and you can learn about some of these on our website, muuf.org. Also on the back of your order of service or in our weekly e-newsletter. This morning, I'd like to highlight a few things. We have many activities during and after the service next Sunday, October 27th. During the service, you are invited to bring photos of your loved ones who have died for our memorial altar. After the service, we will have a newcomer welcome gathering for any new or almost new visitors who would like to learn more about our fellowship and how to get more involved, and that will take place at 11:30 a.m. So you can grab a cup of coffee and then gather. Then from 1 to 3 p.m., we will have a Halloween festival for all ages, including our annual trunk or treat from 2 to 3 p.m. We would also like to direct your attention to changes in our process for submitting material to our weekly newsletter, which you can read about, you guessed it, in our newsletter. And the opening of ticket sales today for our annual service auction will begin. I have something a little more descriptive here. This year's service auction kickoff on November 16th will be the first event held in the new Chu Family Hall, which you can see out those windows. The service auction is a great excuse to throw that party you've been thinking about. Stop by the service auction table at coffee hour to share your ideas with us. And beginning today, you may purchase your tickets to the kickoff event. Childcare and rides can be provided, but you must sign up in advance. Stop at the table to learn more and continue to check the Wednesday email blasts. Information is updated weekly. I have one more, okay. And finally, for those of you who are unfamiliar, we have monthly cinema circles that gather on different days at different times. And this is a really wonderful way to get to know other people in our congregation outside of the Sunday morning experience. It's essentially a no-cost fun event, which is rare these days. So over 50 people have already signed up for the next round of cinema circles. It's like a book club, but with movies. So the movie is selected, you watch it in the comfort of your jammies and your slippers, and then gather for a potluck gathering to discuss that film with members and friends. Please see Jerry Weinstein. Jerry? Yes, thank you. In the Great Hall after the service to learn more and sign up. Again, you can learn more about these activities and many more in our newsletter, on our website, or in your order of service. And finally, please join us for a social hour after this service. Once again, welcome. We are so glad you are here with us.
So I have a time for all ages for us this morning. I'm wondering if anyone might want to come up and help me. Anyone? Come on. Our story today is an adaptation of a folk tale that is told in Japanese and Chinese traditions. So come on up, come on. Good morning. How are you? Good. I have a question for you this morning. I have a question. You all can ask it. You all can answer it too. But what is your favorite food to eat in the whole world? Pizza? Cupcakes? What kind of cupcakes? Pink cupcakes? Pink is the best flavor. Cake? What else? Anything else? What's your favorite food? Donuts? Donuts are good. Okay. How about you? What's your favorite food? Ice cream. I can get along with ice cream. Yeah. Well, let's rephrase it just a little bit. There's always someone in the crowd. Let's rephrase it a little bit. What is your favorite food that you can only eat with a spoon? Ice cream. Anything else you can only eat with a spoon that you really like? Soup. A good soup this time of year. Pudding. Cereal. Yeah, so all kinds of things. So how many people have eaten food with a spoon? Wow, look at that. We all share something in common. We all have eaten food with a spoon at some point. So here's the thing. There's this story about someone who he had a question to ask, and the question was, can you show me an example of the worst possible thing that could happen? Something terrible. And you know what they saw? They saw this vision, and there's this table. And on the table are all the most delicious foods in the world. Foods that everybody absolutely loves, right? So it's got the ice cream, and it's got the pizza, and it's got the cupcakes. It's got everything on the table, right? The best feast you could ever see. But all the people are separated from the table by a huge chasm. They can't get close to the table, right? But they do have spoons. The problem is these spoons are 12 feet long, right? So they can reach the table with the spoon, but then there's no way for them to get the food into their mouth. So everyone has to stand around looking at all this wonderful food that they can get to it, but they can't get it in their mouth. So none of them look very healthy because they can't eat. This is the worst thing in the whole world, to have all of the bounty of the world in front of you, but then not be able to actually enjoy it. So the person who has to see this is like, okay, enough of that picture. I don't want to see that anymore. Show me the picture of the most wonderful experience in the whole world. So then, like magic, the scene changes, right? And guess what the scene was? There's a big banquet table. And on the banquet table, there's all the most wonderful food in the whole world. There's pizza and ice cream. There's everything you could imagine. And there's a chasm, and the people still can't get to the table. And they still have those 12-foot-long spoons so they can reach the food, but they can't get the spoon to their own mouth. But everyone around the table is laughing and having a good time, and they look healthy, and they look like they've been eating the best foods because they've got that smile on their face that comes only after you eat ice cream. What do you think was going on? How were they able to eat the food? It's a hard question, right? How? Well, that would be an idea, but see, even if they put the spoon on the ground, they can't get close enough. There's no way for them to lift it. So that wouldn't work. They still are not able to take the food into the spoon and put it into their own mouth. So they had to find a different way of solving the problem. What do you think they did?
Break
Well, you could try to break the laws, but not in this scenario. That didn't work. What else could they do? So you have the food, you have this 12-foot long spoon.
Climb over the wall.
They can't climb over the walls. They tried that. That didn't work. What could they do with their 12-foot long spoons? Oh, did you hear that? They could feed each other. So they took the giant spoons and they dipped it into the food, right? But instead of trying to get it into their own mouth, they leaned across the table and fed it to somebody else. So everybody was able to get whatever they needed, the bounty all together. See, the difference between the most wonderful world and the least wonderful world is how we look at the problems we face. And if we find a way to share, to put other people's needs as equal as ours, then we can find a way. Yes?
You said they had spoons for like pizza. How would you eat pizza?
That would be a problem, but I think we could figure it out. I would imagine that like 4 of us together, we could get that pizza on the spoon and get it lifted up. We would find a way, wouldn't we? Or just the pepperonis, right? So, this is what I want you to think about this week. Anytime you're faced with a problem, and it seems like an impossible problem, a problem that just can't be fixed, ask yourself, is there another way? Is there a way that I can find to work with other people to make this happen? Alrighty? Thanks for joining me for the story.
I definitely need a step stool. Thanks for bearing with me as I try and read from this height. Now is the time for milestones and passages. Sometimes we come to this sacred space with much on our hearts. Perhaps you welcomed a new baby, lost a loved one, got a new job, have a health concern. Whatever your joy, sorrow, or concern, you can share it in our service by filling out a milestones and passages form prior to 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. You can fill out a form by following the link in our newsletter, and you can also fill out a milestones passage card before the service. This morning we have a few to share, and we ask that you please respond after each by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." Carolyn Blanchard is happy to report she successfully completed her master's thesis entitled "We'll Build a Land, New Jersey UUs in the 1960s Civil Rights Era." She earned a 100% and offers thanks to this fellowship as well as the Montclair and Washington Crossing Fellowships to opening their archives to her. We hold you in our hearts. Judy Bjorklund writes, "Year after year, I'm amazed at the beauty of the fall colors given to us by wonderful Mother Nature. This year seems to be particularly spectacular. It's great to be able to appreciate it. I have 2 colorblind nephews. We hold you in our hearts." Longtime member Tom McGinnis passed away peacefully in his sleep this past Friday, October 18th, at the age of 92. Tom was a member of the choir and an active participant in the Gathering of Men. I believe, if memory serves, he also helped with the Sunday Service Committee, now Worship Arts, for a time. And whenever in doubt about what to say, he would sing you an Irish song. A memorial service will be held at a later date. Information about how to send sympathy cards or emails to Tom's family, his daughters Amor and Mary Louise, his son Richard, can be found in the Wheel of Life email that you received earlier the other day. And as is the custom in this congregation, we light a candle when a congregational member has passed away.
I invite you to join me now in a spirit of prayer, meditation, however your hearts are called. Together, we enter into the space, and let us hold sacred silence together for just a moment. Spirit of life, spirit of fall colors, the oranges, the yellows, the reds that remind us that time is always moving around us, that invite us to be present in this moment, in this now, that invite us to breathe together. We are here a common people, and we bring with us today so many different concerns, lives that are sometimes complicated, anxiety about the world in which we live, uncertainty about the things that are to happen. And part of our gathering together here is a communal prayer just to say, we need one another. Let us be present to one another. And our hearts break open at yet another loss of a loved one in this community. Someone for whom many of us have great fond memories, long years of deep relationship, and our loss is new, and it hits us hard. But we also know from prior experience that there is some comfort in being together. There is some release in being together and remembering well. Spirit of life, we lift up the beautiful memory of Tom this morning and hold him in our hearts. And Spirit, as we continue today to think, to share, to experience, the time will come when we will leave this place to go back into our lives, back into all of the joys and the sorrows, back into all the tragedies and the triumphs, back into all the hope and the anxiety. Remind us when we do that to take something from what we had here today. Let us use this time together as a way of connecting with the deeper part of ourselves, the deeper part of each other. We pray this in the name of all that each of us holds holy and sacred. Amen. Join us now. We're going to sing number 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and ready.
This morning's reading is entitled New Strategies for Wicked Problems, edited by Edward P. Weber, Denise Locke, and Brent S. Steele. Wicked problems are defined by three primary characteristics. They are unstructured, cross-cutting, and relentless. First, unstructured. I'm going to do this way, I think. First, unstructured means that causes and effects are extremely difficult to identify and model, thus adding complexity and uncertainty and engendering a high degree of conflict because there is little consensus on the problem or the solution. Second, wicked problems are cross-cutting in that the problem space comprises multiple, overlapping, interconnected subsets of problems that cut across multiple policy domains and levels of government. Wicked problems, in other words, cut across hierarchy and authority structures within and between organizations and across policy domains, political and administrative jurisdictions, and political group interests. And third, wicked problems are relentless. The problem is not going to be solved once and for all, despite all the best intentions and resources directed at the problem, and efforts to solve the wicked problems will have consequences. That is for other policy arenas as well. Similar to a stone dropped in the water, the ripples spread rapidly to impact other issue areas, thus adding new complications to an already complex situation. Wicked problems present the need for three particular challenges: more effectiveness, more accountability, more democracy. Taken together, the challenges suggest the need for new problem-solving methodologies, processes, institutions, and decision tools that can integrate science and other knowledges and values possessed by the diverse stakeholding groups typically involved in wicked problem settings. What might these new problem-solving methodologies, processes, and institutions look like?
Thank you, Marjorie. I feel like I almost need to apologize for giving anyone a reading so difficult, because I know it's dense to get through, but you did a wonderful job. Now we come to the time in our service each Sunday when we pause to offer our gifts of financial support to this congregation. Please know that your donation, large or small, makes a big difference. It makes possible everything that you do here together. It also helps make the world a better place. That's why each Sunday you give half of the money that is collected to an organization that is doing good work to advance Unitarian Universalist values of love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. And today, I am here as the Reverend Charles Loflin, Executive Director of UU Faith Action New Jersey, our UU statewide justice network. And I am pleased that you have decided to share the collection today 50-50 with UU Faith Action New Jersey. We say at UU Faith Action that grounded in our Unitarian Universalist faith, we are confronting systemic injustice and building a more compassionate society in our state. You may give in our collection plate or by following the instructions printed in your order of service and shown on the screen. Thank you in advance for your generosity. I invite the ushers to please come forward to receive the gifts, and we're going to hear some lovely music from the choir.
The translation of today's text, what we're singing, which is in Swahili, is, "We come with song, we go in peace. May music lead the way, may laughter light your path."
Thank you, choir. It is a pleasure to be back with you this morning. Again, I am the Reverend Charles Loflin, always delighted to be here. I say every time what a privilege it was to serve as your intern minister back when I was in seminary. This place will always hold a special spot in my heart as I think fondly of the time together. And I am here today speaking on behalf of UU Faith Action New Jersey. And I know from prior experience that most of the folks here in this room already know something about UU Faith Action New Jersey because you've been committed as a congregation to this work since its inception. We're now 15 years old, formerly the UU Legislative Ministries of New Jersey, UU LMNJ. And we continue to do the work of trying to be a voice for Unitarian Universalist values, particularly at the state level for our legislature. So we work to make sure that the social justice concerns of our congregations are reflected in the work that our legislature is doing. We talk about a threefold mission for UU Faith Action. We say that we want to educate ourselves and others about what is really going on with these issues. We want to advocate for social justice, centering the most marginalized, always using an anti-racist and anti-oppressive lens to everything that we do. And finally, we want to mobilize. So mobilization means that we show up. We show up. Our coalition partners often refer to us as the people in the yellow shirts who actually show up. Because you can see us at the rallies in our yellow shirts. And mobilization can take many forms. Sometimes it means showing up at the state legislature itself to offer testimony about legislation that is pending, either in support of legislation or in opposition of legislation, or calling for changes to legislation. Sometimes it means showing up at a rally. Sometimes it means showing up at Board of Ed meetings when book bans are on the docket. Sometimes it means showing up for our congregations just in support of one another. And that's another very, very important part of what we do. I don't think it was necessarily envisioned in the founding of the organization, but we are the only statewide organization that actually is in touch with our congregations. So we have an opportunity to help connect the dots between our congregations and the work that's being done. We're proud of the work that we have done over the years. Most people who have been UUs for some time, when they think of UU LMNJ or UU Faith Action, they almost always think about marriage equality. Because the marriage equality movement in New Jersey was in a great part led by the leadership of UU LMNJ. We were the first religious organization to testify openly for the rights of gay marriage in New Jersey. And we were instrumental in that whole process. You may recall, if you think back to it, there was a lawsuit pending that ultimately was able to be withdrawn at the last minute because the Supreme Court finally saw the light of day and made a good decision. Oh my God, for a Supreme Court like that again, what would we give? So I'm really delighted in the work that I get to do. As if you heard me at all when I was a ministerial intern here, you heard that social justice was just a key part of what I'm called to do as a UU minister. I think social justice is critical to the work that our Unitarian Universalist faith is doing in the world. It's not... Sometimes I resist the temptation to draw a complete connection between the work of social justice and the work of Unitarian Universalism. I think that Unitarian Universalism is bigger than the work of social justice, but it's hard for me to imagine how we can be effective as Unitarian Universalists trying to build beloved community together if we don't actually get involved in the social justice issues of our day. I think it is something we are called and compelled to do. But can I be honest with you this morning? I'm going to anyway, so you might as well say yes. Sometimes this work is hard. Sometimes this work is really, really, really hard. I think back, my call to ministry, some of you have heard my call story before. I grew up in another faith tradition where I felt called to ministry, was pursuing a career. And then when it became clear I was no longer welcome in that faith because of my theology, I didn't know what to do. For a while, I was away from all organized religion entirely. And it was only late in my life that I answered the call to Unitarian Universalist ministry. I just went back to seminary in 2018, only 6 years ago. But part of why that happened was because of 2016. Because there was an election that happened. In the aftermath of said election, I began to wonder what was the point of everything that I was doing. I had spent my life building a good career, working in advertising, building websites. I was trying to sell things to people that they didn't want and they couldn't afford. And suddenly I realized life meant so much more to me. And that 2016 election told me that if I didn't do something, if I just sat and waited, that was going to be no answer. So it was a call to social justice that was a call to ministry for me. It was a call to ministry for a lot of you as well. Our congregations responded after the 2016 election because we had to. We had no choice. Suddenly, things were on the line for us that we hadn't thought about before. And I want to be really clear, really, really clear about this. There's a danger in that statement that suddenly everything changed and suddenly the things that were important were under attack. That may be how it felt to those of us who hold a white identity, but there are people who hold other marginalized identities who knew that truth deep in their bones long before we did. In fact, thank God they were there to help show us the way in that time. Because if ever there was a time when we needed to understand the resilience of those who are marginalized and those who are oppressed, it was in those years. But something shifted, something major shifted at that time, and we're seeing it still today. And that's why this work is hard. Because I imagine, if I were to ask for a show of hands of who is exhausted by the news, who is anxious about something called an election coming up, who doesn't want another text on their phone asking for money for this candidate or that candidate. I mean, you really just want to bury your head and say no. And mentioning the Supreme Court, there have been some awful, awful, awful decisions. A court that we have counted on to do the right thing for so much time that now seems to have lost its way entirely. It's easy to look at the situation and think, what is the point of this? And it's not just national. I mean, this has infected all of our politics. Last year in New Jersey, one of the big pieces of legislation we were fighting vehemently against was OPRA, right? OPRA stands for the Open Public Records Act. New Jersey had one of the strongest laws in the country in terms of people being able to get access to public records because they are our public records, right? We have a right to get to them. And so there were laws put in place that allowed that. But the legislature, and mostly the League of Municipalities, wanted changes to the legislation. They wanted to make it harder for people to get access to those public records. And despite all the coalitions coming together and the thousands of people in New Jersey coming out and opposing that, the legislature ignored our wishes and passed a terrible OPRA bill that's going to have long-term impacts here in New Jersey. There is going to be greater corruption. There is going to be less accountability in our government because of this legislation. And it is disheartening Because when I went to those meetings, when I went to those hearings, when I saw the vast coalitions coming together around that of ordinary, everyday citizens saying, no, this is important. This was not a situation where the legislatures didn't know where the people stood. They knew exactly where we stood. We stood for openness, we stood for doing the right thing, and they ignored us. Ignored us. It's tough to rebound from something like that. When you do everything right, when you get everybody together, when everybody raises their hand and makes the phone calls and sends the letters and shows up, and you still lose, that doesn't feel good. And yet, the work continues. As difficult as it is, it has to continue because the thing we are called to do is so important. And hear me, the thing we are called to do is so much bigger than one election. It does not, in some ways, matter how this next election goes, in the sense that we have work to do no matter what. There is not one answer that gives us everything we asked for. So here we are, in the complexity, in the urgency, in the sometimes disappointing world in which we live, trying to get things done. And the things we're trying to do are hard. They're really, really, really hard. You know, legislators, they love it when an issue comes across their desk that's easy. Right? When there's something that they can do that makes them feel good, that they can tout out into the public. But most of the problems we face aren't like that. If they were easy solutions, for the most part, we would have already gotten there. What we have left are complicated problems. Think about some of the problems that we're facing. The climate justice crisis is existential, and it's massive. The problems with education, fair education, are massive. In New Jersey, the problems with housing. Fair share housing almost doesn't exist in the state of New Jersey. And the solutions are complicated, extremely complicated. There are issues about sustainability and income equality, and let us not forget our need to make sure that we are out front, making sure that our trans siblings know that we have their back at this time when they are under attack, left and right. You know, these problems are so complicated that there's a whole category that describes them. That's what we heard today in the reading. There is this term, wicked problem. It must have been coined by someone who grew up in Boston, because that's where wicked really comes into play. But it's a good term. It's a wicked problem when it is complex and challenging. It is a wicked problem when it feels difficult or impossible to solve because it's so complex and it's so interconnected, because you change one little thing and it has an impact on everything else that happens. Classic examples of wicked problems: climate change, education, sustainability, income equality. All those things I just mentioned that we're working on are, in essence, wicked problems. There aren't easy solutions. In fact, as we heard in the reading, we can't even agree on what the problem itself is. Wicked problems are unstructured, cross-cutting, relentless. We can't model them precisely, so it leads to conflict and lack of consensus, not only on the solutions, but on how we actually define what the underlying problem is. And don't even get me started on climate deniers. The death of truth may be the greatest thing that we are living through right now in this society. One of the problems with wicked problems is that traditionally we have at least been told and taught that science would guide our way. That the objectivity of science would mean that if we could get to the point of establishing what is scientifically factual and true, then of course we would just do that thing. But what we have seen now is the weaponization of science. The idea of sowing discord, of suggesting that the science doesn't agree by people who don't understand how science actually works. But it is a problem. It is a terrible problem. They are cross-cutting these wicked problems because there are multiple overlapping, interconnected subsets of problems. Just take clean energy. The implications for moving a system from a fossil-based fuel to something 100% based on clean energy is not as simple as simply saying that's the right thing to do and let's do it. There are huge impacts on millions of people across the planet that are going to happen as we make those shifts. Doesn't mean they don't have to happen. They absolutely have to happen. But it's not as simple as saying we're going to not burn any more fossil fuel. That may be our goal. But the complexity of the issues are deep. And finally, these wicked problems are relentless because they can't be solved once and for all. In fact, here's one of the really, really awful things about wicked problems. Oftentimes, we have to make a decision about what to do, and some of those decisions are going to be one-offs because whatever we choose to do, that means we take away other possibilities. And as time goes by, our options become more and more limited. Truly, truly wicked problems. That is one of the hardest parts of my job because in our work, and our work is currently focused on 4 areas. So we have 4 task forces at UU Faith Action New Jersey. We have an environmental justice task force doing the hard work of climate justice reform, environmental justice. We have an immigration justice task force. We have a criminal justice reform task force that is headed by your very own Tom Moran. And we have a reproductive justice task force fighting for reproductive justice. Jamie Thal from Morristown is one of the co-leaders of that task force. So again, Morristown very much involved in the work of this organization. But some of these problems are absolutely wicked in terms of what has to be done, of trying to get people to understand how to address them. And what I often see is that people care. They care deeply. They want to do something. They want to get involved. But also their eyes glaze over as soon as I start talking about legislation and bill numbers and calling your legislature and sending a letter. And folks are like, so many folks are exhausted. They're just tired. So the question becomes, what do we do? What are the solutions to these complexities of wicked problems? How do we address them? So I've got a few suggestions here. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but here are a list of hard-learned lessons that I think are applicable when we are facing wicked problems. And I want to say that many of the problems our congregations are facing, while they may not all rise to the level of global wicked problems like climate change, I will suggest that they share many of the same characteristics. There are interrelated problems, and making one change has an impact somewhere else. So not only do I think these are appropriate things to keep in mind as we're working for social justice change, I actually think these are pretty good ideas for just how to be better as a congregation. Number 1, the work we do requires coalition. Don't do the work alone. If you're doing the work alone, you're not doing the work. Find a way to work in coalition. Find the people who are doing the same work. Listen to those people. Be in relationship to those people. The answer lies in coalition. New Jersey congregations, hear me. The answer to our individual congregational problems also lies in coalition with other New Jersey UU congregations. If we continue to function completely in silos, disconnected from what we're doing, we're losing an important part of this work, a necessary part of this work. We need to find ways to be working together. Number 2, this work requires joy. It does. It requires joy. Your righteous anger may move you to action, and that's a beautiful thing, but your righteous anger will not sustain you. Your righteous anger may move you to vote in one election, but your righteous anger is not going to move you to dismantle systems of oppression. We have to find the joy in the work. If we're not making it fun in some way, if we're not experiencing joy, then we won't keep doing it. And the ironic thing is there is joy in this work, or there can be. When you get involved, where does the joy come from? It comes from the relationships that you develop, the relationships with so many different people. Third, the work requires moving at the speed of trust. This is terminology I take from Adrienne Marie Brown, moving at the speed of trust. Most of us want to get things done and get them done yesterday. But that's not how systemic change actually happens. We can only move at the pace that we are in relationship with others. That is slow. That is hard to sustain, but that's what the truth is. It's actually how you can move as a congregation. You can only move as a congregation at the speed of trust. If you're not building trust along the way, then the changes that you make won't stick. They just won't. The work requires taking time away from the work. Oh my God, I'm preaching to myself now. Part of our real issue around wicked problems, around social justice work, even around congregational work, is that we tend to overdo it. We go all in, we're committed, and we don't take the break when we need the break. To do this work effectively, you have to commit to giving yourself permission to take time away from the work. You have to really prioritize self-care. Not take time away forever, but if we took time away regularly and in an intentional way, then we could do that and come back refreshed and keep the work going. Number 5, this work requires our full selves and our full resources. Did you hear that? This work requires our full selves and our full resources. This is not performative. This is not just showing up. It requires being really, really present. Because if we're going to move the needle the way we need to move it, we need to hear, to deeply listen to the concerns that are out there. And that means being present and being vulnerable. And it requires all of our resources. I'm not talking just about money, but let's be clear, money's a big part of it. Because if we can't fund the institutions that are actually making the change, where is that going to leave us? But it's all of our resources. Our resources not only of money, but our resources of time and energy and commitment. It requires our full selves. And related to that, I will say this work requires transformation. Because here's the thing, when you get involved in this work and you really are doing it, whether you intend to or not, you are going to be changed by the process. Maybe that's what makes it a little bit dangerous. Because when you start actually caring about the justice, not only of yourself, but of all those around you, you will be transformed. You will be transformed. And finally, this work requires love. It's related to joy, but if love isn't at the center of what we're doing, I believe it is absolutely doomed to fail. When we approach this work in hierarchies that we have been taught and that we have been acculturated with, when we think that there are other people on the other side who aren't worthy of inherent dignity, when we treat them like second-class citizens, that's not working with love at the center. Now, love at the center is a tough love. It's a love that says you're not going to hurt anyone. I'm going to stand up where I need to stand up. If you are saying hurtful, harmful things, love demands that I step in, that I intervene. I'm not going to sit idly by. But it still has to be love. It can't be contempt. It can't be disrespect. It can't be superiority because I know better than you do. It has to be love. Love at the center. I hope that you will join us in the hallway afterwards. There's some tables set up where we have some more specific information about what's happening at UU Faith Action. I hope that you will get involved with UU Faith Action. Easiest way to do that, if you're not already receiving our emails, please go to our website and sign up, or see me after the service. I'll sign you up right here on my iPad, right? But if you just give me your email address, I can make sure that we are able to communicate with you about things where we need you to take action. But most importantly, like the story of the long spoons, wicked problems seem impossible to solve, but if we can find a way to address them together, we can all be at the table, we can all get fed, and it can be heaven on earth. Blessed be. And now we're going to sing Come and Go With Me, number 1018.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There will be a freedom in that land. There will be a freedom in that land. There will be a freedom in that land where I'm bound. There will be a freedom in that land. There will be a freedom in that land. There will be a freedom in that land where I'm bound. There will be a justice in that land. There will be a justice in that land. There will be a justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be a justice in that land. There will be a justice in that land. There will be a justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land. There will be freedom in that land where I'm
Oh, come and go with me, people. Come and go with me. Let's make it the land we wish to have. Our closing words are from Maureen Calora. No matter how weak or how frightened we may feel, we each have gifts that can make a difference in the world. In this coming week, may you do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, and to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected, and each day act so you may be a little more whole. Go in peace, my friends.